Before I mention anything else, I'm just gonna bring up the resources I used for the models, tutorials I followed, and all the other resources that I think would be useful. First is a Google file full of models that were ripped from Splatoon 3. I'm not sure whether the person who made it actually wants to be mentioned, as they aren't taking requests and they aren't ripping from the game anymore. But I will link the Google file thing so that you can have access to that. On top of that, it can also be a little bit difficult to find the specific files you're looking for, but there is a site by Lean Yoshi that shows the respective file names for each of the meshes and the models, so you can use that to find what you're looking for. The models resource, the Splatoon 3 and 2 ones, the Splatoon 3, 2, and sometimes even the Splatoon 1 can be super useful. I only really used it for the character models, but some of the files that weren't then brought to Splatoon 3, you can't get them, so you might need to use the ones from Splatoon 2 or something along those lines. Um, and then there is a YouTube video that I followed. It's a really good tutorial. It's how to make a Splatoon 3 avatar in Blender. It's the main one that I watched. It helped me figure out everything out. It helped me figure everything out. It's super solid, super consistent, and while technically you don't need to, I'd say that it is really important that you do watch it, because it sort of helps to set up a baseline of knowledge, and so you know why I do certain things or how I set up certain things that I sort of might do automatically by instinct that you would know first by watching the video. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is I'm going to be using a character's hair that I already made as an example. So if I go into File and then I do Open, we're not going to save it, but let's just go to here. You can see that I have two different models for it. One is for messing around in Blender, while the other is for if I wanted to port it into Splatoon 3 so that other people could use it as a mod. The Blender one has its bones, its textures, everything else changed in ways that modding won't let you. You can try, but the last time that I did, it crashed my friend's Switch, and that wasn't not ideal. Anytime I say or mention something that won't work when modding or requires a different technique, I'll try to add a little pop-up that'll mention hey, pay attention to this, it's not the same, or you'll need to change something later on. There should be a section that is dedicated to modding, just saying hey, here's a couple caveats, but for the most part, everything else is relatively similar. But we're just going to start with importing a character model, just, to have it as a baseline, right? I'm just going to go here, we're going to import that, and we're going to delete cube, all this extra light. Don't really care about that. I'm just going to make that a little bit lighter. And we're just going to give it a basic name, it's Kai. This is Kai. And then I'm just going to go up to 3, and there we go. Depending on what works for you, I find that using the notation tool helps me a lot just for planning out the hair, because I had a pretty good plan of what I wanted to do, but drawing this might help for some people. It just helps to figure out, okay, I want it to look like this. What things do I need to make it look like this, right? You can toggle the notations and everything, because if I draw like this, you can see this here, or here, and then I can turn it on and off. I can just delete it entirely. So it's really basic, it's really rudimentary, but it's super useful just for helping to plan out where it's I can, draw it and be okay, great, so I want it to look like this, right? It sort of works like the grease pencil, but it's just really basic, really rudimentary. But it helps. But you can change the color, you can have more layers, mess around with it, and it's not it's not super important, but I find that sometimes it's helpful to just be able to say, okay, I need this to look like this, and then to have it plan it out. So because I've already made this model, I know that I want to start with the Inkling cornrow style. So just gonna go File, Import, get the hair. And hopefully you do know that each of the like hairs, the pants, eyebrows, etc., they all have like their own respective like number, whereas you can see, or as you could see, the corner hair it was number 15. Versus the base Inkling hair, I believe, is in it's number 1, I believe. But then if we go here, we're just gonna set this up really quick. Selected. Oh my god. Okay. Oopsie. As you can see, I messed up slightly and selected the wrong node. We're just gonna fix that really quick. Shouldn't mess anything up, but if I can stop pressing A instead. There you go. Okay. We have the base hair that I'm going to start with. Obviously, this doesn't have everything I'm looking for because I want, like, you know, I could use these, but what I'm looking for is just a bit more detailed. You know, I plan on adding, like, other meshes, other hairs for the game, like from the game, to help with detail and stuff. So that's it. Just a quick note for modding. When you're adding meshes and everything, for the game to willingly function, all of like the hairs, the textures, everything needs to be set to only 1. All the meshes need to be set to 1 armature. All of the meshes need to use the same UV map, otherwise it won't work or it'll look weird. So just keep that in mind. There is a way to make sure that it works, but just be careful with it because, you know, everything needs to be on the same armature, everything needs to use the same UV map, otherwise it's just weird, it's messy, it's difficult. It's fixable. I'm going to explain how to do it, but just, you know, keep that in mind. And so, really, really important thing to do when editing your meshes, I'm just going to turn that there so you can see the actual color, is this very, very fun little thing. If I can remember where it is. It's, okay, shoot. Yeah, so, you go, select an armature. You select a mesh, right? Select one of these guys. You go into edit mode, and you need to do, pull this out. You go to, yeah, so you go here, you go to tool. I'm just going to show you where that is again because it's really out of the way. It's really annoying. I'm going to grab this, right? It's like this little arrow right next to this thing. It's also here in the options, so just keep that in mind. But, you know, it's one of these things, but turn this off. If I remember correctly, it is automatically on, and if that is on, I'm just going to show as an example. We're going to go into transform. I'm just going to select these guys. If I move it, eventually, maybe, okay, that's not working. Right, I'm just gonna like move these, right? As you can see, the mesh, the UV map, the color, it is not, doesn't look great, right? But then if I go back to options, I turn this off, then I move it, you can see the color and the UV map that is attributed to each spot stays the same, and that is very important for this to be off. Make sure this is unchecked. We don't want this. There's a ton of setup that you actually need to do before you can do anything. It's stressful, it's annoying, but it helps. Now, I'm just gonna okay. Give me a moment to fix the mistake I just made. What I was going to do is put the armature out of the collection with the character model, because then I can just do that, and there we go. But what we're going to do is, so, if you go back into edit mode, you look around, you might notice that there are quite a lot of loose dots. Really annoying. They don't connect to anything. They're not useful, mind you. They have no use. They're just annoying, right? They're just all around here. They're like mosquitoes. You know, you can delete them manually, but you might not get all of them. You might accidentally delete one that's actually useful. So the fastest effective way to do this is just to press the A key. This is an all select, just selects everything. And then you go up here to mesh, scroll all the way down to clean up, and then delete loose. And then you can see it automatically deleted 1,350 loose vertexes. So that's a ton of my time saved. Again, I'm just going to go over it. You press the A button, you go to mesh, all the way down, clean up, right here. It's right above delete, and then delete loose. And that should help to clean up your model. It should help to just delete everything that's loose, everything that's, you know, makes it a lot easier. You don't need to worry about, like, accidentally selecting one that has no importance. Okay, so Splatoon models have this funky little feature where the mesh isn't, like, one huge mesh, but multiple collections of meshes that are each lined up, but not connected properly. With the hairs specifically, it's really easy to see what you need to, like, connect and fix, because there's usually a split between, like, this exterior and interior, right? Like, I just call, like, this the inner and the outer tentacle. As you can see here. Selecting the vertex, and the lines or edges, whatever you want to call them, that it's connected to turn orange. And you can see that means that I've connected this, and if I move it, these edges will be affected. But then if I, like, move this point, like that, womp, you can see there's another point it's not connected to. I'm just gonna really quick undo and redo it. Press Control Z again, or if I wanted to, Control Shift Z to redo, right? I'm on Mac, so my controls are probably going to be a little bit different, but if you just go up to here, edit, undo, redo, it should show, like, the hotkeys for you. But, so, for the vertex, we can see that there's a vertex under this one, because there are, a couple more edges underneath that aren't, like, highlighted when I select it. But I can't select the other one, right? Double click, if I, like, drag and select, still only selects one. So, what can you do? Well, I can move it, and then do this, and then put them together, or, this is the thing that I find the easiest, is, if we go up to the top here, I think I have to scroll a little bit, because I have this, like, squished, but, if we go here, is this thing. The wireframing, it turns on the X-ray, and everything, it turns on the X-ray, it's right here, turn this off, can't see through it, turn it back on, you can see through it. So, each of these has its own little, properties. I'll explain, a little bit later, right? Like, I'll explain how these work a bit later. Sorry. But you can see it's the X-ray. Typically, I like to stay in rendered preview, and I can just turn this on, and then bam. And you can see, I can click that. I can change how I want to select it. And then, so I'm going to go here first. I'm going to go to, the select box. And then I can, like, highlight it like that, like, oh no, I selected a couple ones that I don't want. It's really easy. And then click and drag, it's gone. And then what you do is you can go to mesh, go down here, at center. And then I could do that for, give it a second, for this. Sorry. And then something, you can also just press M, merge at center, there you go. And then if I move it again, you can see that there is not a hole. You will have to do this for, like, every single vertice. It is tedious, it's painful, but so far it is the best solution that I know of. So just tedious, but it honestly just helps to make everything work better, and it's just more effective. It's the most effective way that I know about. But yeah, so typically I would recommend just linking all of these. But then on to the next part is to help with, like, how things look and when you're moving them. I'd recommend turning on symmetry. For this hair, it is not very symmetrical, so I don't know how well I can show it, but it's like, if I go here, select, and I select, I'm just going to select this stuff because I know that it's going to be symmetrical, right? Turn on the x-axis symmetry. If I grab this point, right? Turn on movement, transform, move it, this moves as well. Pretty obvious. But sometimes you just need to make sure that everything is actually symmetrical, so with meshes that I know are 100% symmetrical, right? Over a specific point. You select it, then you go to mesh, you go to symmetrize. That happens. Fun. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. I'm gonna pull up a better one that'll probably, I'm just gonna, give me a second, I'm gonna like pull up the female Inkling hair really quickly just because we know for a fact that's, select cursor, we're just gonna size that up to 3, and we got her, we have her right here, right? Oopsie. I can press Z, that does this. I'm just gonna go to wireframe, obviously we have all this. I'm going to, like, just press A, select all again. Need to make sure that we're selecting the mesh, actually, first off, before I do anything else. Press that, press A, that. Anyways, then we go in edit mode, we press A, right? Go to mesh, and then we go to symmetrize, and you can see that, do that again. Press A to select all, or I can just do this. Make sure you have X-ray on. If you don't have X-ray on and you select like this, you're not going to select everything. So just make sure you have X-ray on. Just boop that there. Press A, and then mesh, symmetrize. You can see a couple of the things changed, because that just means that everything snaps to the same thing, and that just helps with, like, you know, things aren't completely and totally perfectly aligned. It just makes it a bit easier, fixes some of the hassle. So yeah, that's about it. We don't need this anymore, so just gonna, oh, right, oopsie. Delete all that, but yeah. So it's like, for this hair, there are a couple things that you need to make sure that you're aware of, is that, like, sometimes symmetry doesn't really work properly. So first off, we're just gonna select the mesh, go to edit mode, edit mode, and as you can hopefully see here, we're just gonna, like, look at this point, right? You can see that I have the mesh that is selected to this main tentacle here. I'm gonna move it, but you can see that this is moving. Not sure why. I believe it's because, yeah, I don't know. But if I move this, then it works fine. If I select this, it doesn't work. So just keep that in mind, that sometimes symmetry isn't going to work entirely well. So just make sure it's a caveat. Just make sure that you check first before you do a ton of editing, because otherwise that's a ton of time down the drain. Also, so I don't know how the best example. Sometimes when you try to symmetrize something, like, we're just gonna this, select everything, mesh, symmetrize. You can see that, you know, that fixed itself, but sometimes areas will actually, like, stop. I'm not sure why, but they'll, like, get deselected Apparently this isn't doing it. Thought that it would, but I'm not sure why. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how to fix that. I'm pretty sure that like just if you like messed with it enough, you could fix everything with it, but from what I know, I cannot think of a very consistent way to fix that. So it's, you know, make sure that you don't symmetrize something that isn't supposed to be symmetrical, right? Like the asymmetrical hair. Won't work. Don't need to worry about that unless that's what you want to do. But I'd say be careful with that because I've never like done symmetry with non-symmetrical hairs, so that might not be the best solution. Okay, so that should be just about everything you need for the mesh setup. Quick go through again, so go to options and make sure that your correct face attributes is off. You can also go here, it's in tool, again make sure it's off. Make sure that you have selected everything and gone to mesh, clean up, delete all the loose, makes it pretty easy. Make sure that if you're using a hair that's going to be perfectly symmetrical, that again, mesh, symmetry, make sure that that works. Make sure that you have merged all of these like points. You need to make sure that you're in X-ray mode. You have X-ray mode turned on to be able to do this. Make sure that you actually even have like the mirroring on properly. That should be about it. But as long as you follow those steps, it should be a ton easier. I'm also just gonna go over the stuff again in a second. There should be like timestamps for each thing in case you're looking for something specific. So this is just tutorial. Take a break for like little bits and pieces of things that I think I need to explain more, and then we're gonna get back to the tutorial. So yes. Okay, so on to the small stuff. Some of this is probably gonna be a little bit rudimentary. It might seem stupid, but just bear with me here. So first we're gonna go over just selecting, and it's like, so here, you have the select box, and hover over it and it shows a couple of things, but I'm not gonna go over what explaining these. I don't know. I'm gonna be completely honest. I only ever really use these three, but we have this. It's just a one select, right? If I go over here, it only selects that, it only selects that, blah, 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 blah. Click away, it's all gone, right? It's a one-time select. You select what you want, that's it. I don't usually find too many uses for it. I'm honestly always, I call this addition, but basically it's like I select like this, select like that, select more, blah, blah, blah. Pretty simple. And then subtraction just does the opposite, you know? If you've used art programs, I think you might have used something similar to this. But if you press the W button, it changes. It's like a selection cycle, but you can make a, you know, make a heart. You have to, again, change it because now that I have the single time selection on, so. And then I press W again, and then I have lasso, you know, works like a lasso. Pretty basic. W. This one, I'm gonna be honest, I've never really used it. It's like you select and move it automatically. Still have my symmetry on, so that's about it. Shift Z turns on X-ray. We have learned something new. Control Z, and goes back to normal. And then I press W again, and box select, right? Another thing you can do is, it depends on honestly how you have it, like, how you have it. Normally, double-clicking doesn't work, but it's like you can select through renders, right, where let's see. So I'm gonna go out of edit mode, turn on Kai again, but it's like I select this, double-click, and then I can select his mesh, right? You know, just click again, helps you just select other stuff. Don't need to anymore. But then, yeah, so that's basically just what double clicking is. It can be pretty useful sometimes. Also, again, it's like for connect. Jeez, sorry. It's also for like click that, and I can click again, and then I can change it. Another thing is that, so let's say, obviously, transform, like these things, they're automatically set to like this singular selection, right? Select like that, it's gonna change. But if I have this selected, I can go here and then add more or subtract more, blah blah blah, you know, however I need it to be. But another thing is, say I just have one, right? Like I've selected all of this, I just need like this. I can hold shift, press, shift, select. Go over that again. So select this, and I hold the shift button, and I click it, click it, click it. I can just click however I want. I can hold shift, and I can drag and select. But if I let go of shift and I select again, changes, right? Like that. There's also control, right? So I'm going to select this, and I press control, nothing happens. That is because one of the vertices, or one of the selected things, has to be like, it's like the primary, I don't know how to describe it, it's like the primary selected one. But basically you hold control, and you click. And then it sort of finds like the shortest path. I think, maybe? Yeah. You can see, right, I go like this, I select this, and then it just sort of like follows the path of the white dot, right? So, see that's white, I press control, go over here, right? Press control again, it goes over here. However, if then I click, if there is not a white dot, control will not work. So just keep that in mind, but it's pretty good for figuring out, you know, is this connected? Another thing to figure out whether things are connected, I'm going to go into face mode, because this is, I think, where I find it the most useful, is I'm just going to click this face, right? This face here. We're going to go to select, go down, select linked, and then linked. And then I can see that all of these are connected. So that means that if I move this, well, we're on symmetrical, so, you know. But, so if I turn this off really quick, I move that, there is, you know, pretty clean, pretty simple. It can help with figuring out, like, whether or not you need, whether or not, like, all of the vertices on, like, these lines have been connected, right? Where it's like, if I think I connected one over here, but it's like, if I go here, select, linked, that's only going to show these, right? So, yeah, it's an easy way where if you're trying to delete specific things, where it's like, eventually, I'm not going to want any of this. So I can just, like, select, linked, and I can just delete, right? X to delete, by the way. Just go there, and it's select, linked, sorry, not shortest path, select, linked, and then delete, blah, blah, blah. Pretty useful. Pretty. Okay. So then I'm just going to go over like the different sort of viewport appearances that your mesh selection can have. I've discussed X-ray a couple of times, but basically we have the wireframe, which it is the only one that automatically toggles on X-ray, right? So it just shows your vertices and your edges. Sort of shows the faces, but they're just very clear. They're usually, like, just when you're normally selecting them, they're pretty much translucent to transparent. Then there is solid. Again, X-ray's off. It's basically just your vertices, edges, your faces, all of those, just without, like, any extra texturing, without any extra of, like, the application of the UV map. And then there is material preview. Basically the same as solid, except that it actually shows, like, you know, the texturing, how the UV map is applied, all that fun stuff. And then there is rendered. It's basically just shows like what it would look like when you actually outload, you know, your basically shows what it would look like when you outload the render. I don't have any light sources, so you can't really see what it would look like, but it would normally show like, you know, how it's reflected or something else like that. Recommend not staying in rendered for too long, just not. I've found that it's not great for your computer. But yeah, that's about it for the different views. There's nothing too complicated about it, I don't think. I recommend just staying between material. I find myself staying on material preview. Sometimes I'll flip over to this, but I find that that's normally the best. I touched on notations a little bit. I'm just going to go over it again because I think I was a little bit rushed. But I find that it's just basically useful for, you know, planning. I can just draw. If I change the angle like this, then it looks like that, you know. It's like the grease pencil, but just very, very... It's a lot more rudimentary, I think, in my opinion. You know, it's not as cool as the grease pencil, we'll say. But, you know, it's just annotate, right? You know, you can change the labels, blah, blah, blah. Got this one. Add, I copy that, you know, delete that one. And then I go here, beep, beep, beep. Right? So, just sort of, you know, it's fun to mess around with, but I mainly just use it for, like, making notes, stuff like that. Helps to, you know, plan. You can change the colors and stuff. You can, like, make things appear and disappear. You can add layers, etc. But again, it's rudimentary. I feel like this is more for larger projects, but it's here, helps you plan, whatever floats your boat. And just to continue to cover all my bases, we've got like the, sorry, give me a second. So, say that this, first off, I have it subtracted, right? Just fix that. So I have this selected, I accidentally press away. We're just gonna say that I have something super complicated selected. Don't want to have to deal with that again. Just Control Z, select it again. Control Shift Z, Control Z, Control Z, continually redo, undos, and then Control Shift Z, redos, Control Z, undos. Now, it can be useful for some things, but certain things it cannot do. Like, so we're gonna go into view, and we're gonna go all the way down to area, right? What we're gonna do is we're going to do a vertical split, right? Right here, we got this. And it is going to be sort of, we're just gonna select here. And then we have another view, right? We're just gonna say that I want to change it to shader editor or something. I don't know. Okay, we're just gonna set that up there, right? If I press Control Z, it does not remove the area. So to remove an extra area that you added, you have to go to View, Area, and then close this area. I believe that because this is like the base layout, you know, if you go to View, Area, you can close the area, then it would just be this. So I feel like that wouldn't be, it wouldn't be super useful, but, you know, you could do it if you felt like it. But yeah, you can use views. I actually have it set up in UV. I don't know. I had it set up somewhere, but you know, I can use it in like UV. You can see it being used in UV editor, where you know, I can sort of normally. I'm gonna go over this later, but basically, you know, you use the views for different stuff. It's convenient, pretty helpful. But yes. Okay, and again, just continuing to go over like all the stuff that I already went over, but, so, you're just gonna import a mesh, random mesh. With Splatoon, pretty messy. Select all, press A, go to mesh, clean up, delete loose. I don't have any because I already did this a couple of times, but, you know, I'm just gonna say that, like, if I just helps to clean it up, and it just makes it a lot easier. That's about it for, like, cleaning up loose, but that's how you do it. Again, drag and select, mesh, clean up, delete loose. And I've mentioned a couple of times about symmetry. You know, you turn this on, but the problem is that if I move, like, a second, sorry. If I move this, you know, nothing's gonna change because there's nothing over there. But if I press A to select all, and then I go to mesh, I can symmetrize, and then that will, like, automatically add this over here. That just sort of helps with hairs sometimes. If you're using other hairs, I would recommend trying to avoid doing that because some things aren't perfectly symmetrical and they're not, like, supposed to be perfectly symmetrical. Where it's, like, the top knot, the bun thing. If you symmetrize that, like, if you put that, make it symmetrical, I think that would mess it up a bit. As you can see here, you can sort of see that it's not supposed to be there, but normally only really use the symmetry tool for, like, you know, parts that you know are completely symmetrical, or at least are supposed to be symmetrical. And then another thing, just to go over it, because this is, like, the most important thing that will save you hours of your life and has made me go insane multiple times over, is this little button. It's in options, or it's in this arrow over here. Make sure, so if you're going to use this arrow over here, make sure that you're in edit mode. You have to be in edit mode to access it, otherwise it won't look the same. But if you go to tools, this needs to be off. It's automatically turned on, needs to be turned off. This, we do not like this guy. We do not like him. I don't like him at the least. But just, I'm pretty sure that it's like if I go out of edit mode options, yeah, you have to be in edit mode to change it. It's in options here as well. But drag this out. Sorry. Drag this. And just, you know, helps a lot, saves you time, because if it is on, that means that when you move the mesh, the UV map just does not move well. It's a hassle to fix. Just keep it off. Trust me. You don't want to deal with that. And then I think the last thing that I need to go over is, like, merging vertices. Basically, again, it's like the whole, this is not good. It's not great. But you can either select both of them, select, shift, select, select, shift, select, you know. But you have to make sure that you're in X-ray mode, because, again, if I turn this off, select that, it's only going to select the top one. I can't click through it, so make sure that wireframe is on. Make sure that the X-ray is on. Select both, and then you go to mesh, merge, at center. Or you can do select, click away first to remove that, select, and then you can press M at center, merges it. Pretty good, pretty easy, you know. Just helps to make sure that there aren't, like, holes in your model that you weren't expecting when you move stuff. But again, so if you see here, we have the symmetry turned on, but if I move this, you need to make sure that both sides have the same thing, right? Because of the fact that these are merged, but these aren't, result is not pretty. So just make sure that everything you do on both sides, because certain effects of symmetry work, certain don't, and merging themselves is not one of them. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to have massive holes in your model randomly that you were not expecting. It is not fun to try to figure out when that happened and how to fix it. So you've got all of your mesh, you've got your mesh set up, you've got everything cleaned up, you've got it symmetrical, you've got it how you want. Past this, there isn't really much, because, like, you know, it's your mesh, it's your editing. You have full creative freedom. But, you know, I've still got a couple of recommendations about what I think would help, the best ways to do certain things, so on and so forth. So, it's going to be the same format as a couple of seconds ago. Just want to clarify, there is no more setup. You can go crazy. I've just got a couple of, here are some things that I recommend that you do to make everything just go a whole lot smoother and just a whole lot easier. So, first things first, we're going to go over, like, adding, removing vertices and faces. If you're wondering what happened, I decided to change the file. Made a couple of mistakes when I was trying to show some examples, so I just wanted to full reset. But anyways, so with Kai's hair, I had decided that I wanted to, like, sort of merge these two, like, vertices. Sorry, not vertices, these two, like, tentacles, because it's an Octoling, it's an Inkling hair, blah 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 blah. You know, whatever. But the main thing is that when, like, going into edit mode and adjusting the vertices, we're gonna pretend that I have the things merged together. Just gonna clean it up again really quickly, just mesh, clean up, blah blah blah, they're all gone. We're just gonna pretend like I have all of these points merged together. I'm too lazy to do that, because I'm not actually gonna turn this in. But we're gonna say that it's like, you know, I wanted to, I think it was over here, say that I wanted to, like, have these points go sort of like this, so that it made it look a little bit more smooth, right? But I'm sitting here and I'm like, it's very difficult to get, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I don't like how that looks. You know, maybe I could use, like, an extra triangle between these points. And first, what I'm going to do really quick, I'm just going to merge these two. So just M at center, there you go, you got them merged. But it's like, maybe it's like, okay, well, as much as I want to connect these, I'm worried it would make it stretch. So this is where adding or removing vertices, faces, edges, etc. Often, I have never found that adding edges is useful simply because of the fact that if I add an edge, it's just an edge. Moving the edge won't actually change how the faces look. I'm just moving the edge, right? It doesn't have as much of an effect, so it's better to just add either vertices or add faces, right? But, so we're gonna say that I want to put this point, and this point together. So I'm just gonna go into multi-select, just gonna get those three, and we have them here. Now, what I normally do is go to Vertex, and then go to New Edge or Face from Vertice, and then this happens. It does look weird, explain how to fix that later, but for now, we have this. Undo that again. I go here, I make sure that I have the vertices I want selected. I often prefer, just this is like a personal me thing, I prefer to try to only use triangles. It just helps with fitting things together, but sometimes it's inevitable that you might need a square. But again, you go up here, Vertex, New Edge or Face from Vertices. And there you have it. You can also just press the F, that's the hotkey. It could be different for you depending on how you set it up, but here should show you, right? So, you can do that, depending on what works for you. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, I want to add maybe something like right here, right? I want to add a extra triangle here. What that would require, or we're going to say that it's like, I want to change the triangle so that it's a triangle here and a triangle here, rather than a triangle here and a triangle here. What that would do is first go to edge select, face select, and select this one, press X to delete, press face. Don't press vertice, because if I press vertice, delete, and then do vertices, that causes, because it deletes the associated vertices. It's this one, and this one. That means that this face can't exist, and neither can these two, so press X, you delete your faces, right? Clear this one, delete faces. And then I would go back here, and I would say, shoot. I'm gonna go to the X-ray mode so I actually get like the right vertices selected, but then we're gonna select this one. You're gonna hold Control or Shift, depending on what you prefer, and then also select this one. And then I will press, you go to Vertex, New Face Rewrite from Vertice. Again, it's gonna look a little bit funky, that's fine. You can change it. Select that one, Shift, select this one, Shift, select that one, and again, go to Vertice, you can press F, and there you go. You have your faces. So that's about it. It's pretty useful. It's gonna look weird. I'll explain how to fix that in a bit. I just want to go over some other things first. So we'll get to that pretty quickly. Okay, so as I mentioned, I need to go over, you know, you've made a couple of faces, but they look weird. How do you fix that? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to UV editing. Now I've already made a couple of changes here, so just keep that in mind. Normally it starts in solid with the X-ray turned off. To keep that in mind, but then if I go here, I have it set up here properly. Normally it's going to be a blank thing, so what you need to do is first off make sure that you have the right color map selected, right? If I'm just going to show it here, like if I'm going to go to edit mode here, if I select this one, it has a different one. See, geometry shaved versus then geometry hair, right? So keep that in mind, that you need to make sure that you have the right one selected, and then that you have the right actual UV map that it's assigned selected. The UV map that it is assigned to corresponds to the one that it's selected to in shading, right? So we have this guy here selected in shading, and then if we go to UV editing, it's the same one here. So that means that if we press A, you can see all of these guys. But obviously, we need to try to fix this because it's looking a little wonky. First things first, if I'm doing UV editing, I find it's better to go into face select, because then I can just click the ones that I need to change. Now, obviously, we can see very easily that something it's off. This happens because we are selecting, like I was combining pieces of the face that were from, like, different parts, so to speak, right? Because if you look here, the UV map isn't, like, everything isn't just completely, everything isn't completely connected. What happens is actually that the model sort of folds over itself, right? So if I go here, I'm going to change to move. Just gonna select this one, move it. There's another one underneath it because there are two. For editing the maps, I find that the best way to just do everything first is to select everything here, go up to, let me find it. Sorry. UV, snap to pixels at center or corner, depending on what you want, and then move it slightly, and then move it back so it says that it was moved by 0. I don't know if you could see it up there, but I'll show it again. Select it. You see the DX by the DY, right? Make sure that you move it just a bit, but then move it back to 0 so that nothing actually moved. But what this does is then it just properly aligns everything to the pixels, and then when you're trying to, like, change how things are positioned, it just makes it a bit easier, makes it less difficult to, like, fix everything, because if I have it off, then I can't really align things the way that I might want them to, but when I have it snapped on, then it's easier to deal with. Now, obviously, we're going to go to actually fixing these, so I want to fix this one first. As you can see, it's super stretched out. That's because these guys are sort of like, the points that they're made of are like trying to stretch between the selected ones. If I select these guys, like, I'm just going to select these guys first, right? So you can see this point, if I select it, is connected to these guys. So I can't change it without changing this. the best way to do that is just select each of the faces one by one, because then if I move this here, right, and then I select it, then these, like, if I then go like this, then you can see that these guys aren't, like, negatively affected by it. It's just that I moved this guy, right? I just can do the same for these, because it's basically the same. Select there, and then that means that, just zoom in a bit to fix it. But then that means that, like, I can just sort of go here, and then, you know, it sort of looks a bit better. Obviously, it's a little bit funky, but, you know, when you're actually trying to fix it, it can make it look a bit better. Okay. And for this one, honestly, it depends on what you want, but this is just something that I personally actually found super useful because it helps with, like, getting the shape. It's the sculpting tool. It's, again, it is super detailed. There's a ton of things you can do. I'm gonna be honest, I've only really ever used the draw tool. Haven't ever really used the draw sharp, clay, anything else. But I find it useful when I need to just, like, get the basic shape where it's like, you know, maybe if I pop Kai in here, right? It's like I want this thing to get over to here, right? So then what I can do is, I believe there's a drag tool. Grab, right? I grab this, and I can sort of grab it and move it to where I want. And oopsie. Also, you can change the radius, etc. It's like, you know. I'm just gonna put it to, like, and then I'm able to, like, move this properly. Move, please, thank you. But this isn't a good example, but trust me, I found it super useful when it came to, like, Kai's whole thing. Right? You know, just sort of use it to drag. This looks pretty ugly, I'm gonna be real with you. But there are instances where, you know, it's really useful. It can help you, like, with the shape and everything. But, you know, see here, look. You know, I got everything here. I might want to, like, grab this. And, actually, wait, shoot. But yeah, I think I've messed it up really badly here. But, you know, you can use it for a lot of different stuff. Helps with just the versatility. It can probably help you with a more organic shape. We're going to ignore the fact that I am progressively making this worse. I found it useful in some scenarios. I'm just not doing it properly here. But yeah, no, so you can sort of, if I wanted to, I could, like, make this a bit more rounder, etc., etc. You can adjust, like, the radius, the strength, entirely. It's, like, it's super fun if you can actually use it properly, which I can't, but, you know, pretty great, pretty fun, and it can help you get specific shapes. And then, from this, if you're sitting there like, I didn't like how this looks, but I like the sort of shape that I have, right? Next best thing, so if you go back into edit mode, right? This is an amazing tool. I'm going to turn on wireframe, but it's like, I select all of these guys, and then I go to Vertex, I go to smooth vertices. It sort of helps to, you know, smooth out the vertices. I'm just gonna, like, really quickly symmetrize everything, because that got messed up, or match, symmetry, there you go, right? So then what that means now is that if I select all of these guys, and also this guy, these guys, right? I go into Vertex, smooth, and then that sort of, like, helps maybe make the shape a bit more natural, right? Like, you know, select, we're gonna turn off faster again. Maybe I, like, select these guys, blah, blah, blah. And then I go to Vertex, smooth vertices, and then that sort of, you know, smooths it out. See, I don't have anything merged, so it's probably going to look really messed up because with how I'm doing it. It should look a bit better, a bit more natural when you do it. But yeah, so sculpt mode, and smoothing vertices. sort of go hand in hand, because sculpt mode, it's entirely about the shape rather than how the shape, like, it doesn't really, when I'm in sculpt mode, right, I'm just in sculpt mode, not in edit mode, so, you know, I can't see the vertices, so sometimes it's like, I'm sitting there like, oh, I like how this looks, not this, but, you know, I might like how something looks, but it feels a little bit wonky when I go back to the layout, and I'm sitting there like, like, you know, what is up with you? So then just basically, you know, select them, go to Vertex, select them, go to Vertex, and then all the way down to Smooth Vertices. It unfortunately does not have a hotkey, but, you know, now look, it looks a little bit more natural. Looks like this guy isn't being symmetric. It's not being symmetrical right now, but, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but, you know, there you go, right? Looks more natural, has a more natural look, sort of the specialty of, it's really important from my experience, just helps with the shape, etc. You don't have to use it, just thought of it as a tool that I should mention. So, if you're following this and trying to make a mesh for a mod, trying to make like a hair for a mod, this is the part that you, like, this is one of the parts that you won't be able to do, unfortunately. I am very regretful to say that, but you can't. The bones are like hard-coded into Splatoon or something, so the game will crash. Sorry, the game will crash if, like, the bones aren't exactly how they're supposed to be, so just keep that in mind, even if you really, really want to do this. This is only something that can be used for Blender. But, so what's gonna happen is, so if you select the mesh, and you go into edit mode, you can see that it looks like this, right? If I go out, I go to hair, and then I change to the pose mode. I'm gonna turn these back on. Change to the pose mode, and I select, like, I'm gonna find the, where's the knot? There we go. We go to movement, and then maybe I want the, we're just gonna say that I want the ponytail to be up here, for whatever reason. Okay? I want it to be up here. This is the pose, it's fine, but then if I go here, and it's like the edit mode mesh, like, the mesh will follow the edit mode when you have changed the pose, so it's like the mesh sticks to the rest pose rather than to the, like, posed pose. But there's an easy way to fix this. Again, modders can't do that. Really sorry about that. But, so, right now, I have it posed, right? We're gonna go down here to the object data properties, right? You can change it to the rest position, change it back to the pose position. The mesh will set to this, right? But what we have to do is go to the mesh that is affected. It's, go down to your modifier properties, and it should look like this. So, it's the little blue wrench, modifier properties. It should be like some little armature guy. This is called the armature. The object is the hair. I have that. That's what I labeled this little armature. But so what you do is you go down here, duplicate. And then the pose, it's gonna look weird. I believe it's like the pose, you know, you duplicate it. So the position then is duplicated. But what you're gonna do is then go to the first armature, right? You have it like this. You're gonna go here, press apply. And it's still gonna look really funky, but that's fine, that's what we want. Then what you do is you go back to your armature, right? You go to pose mode. I'm just going to select all the bones. You go to pose, apply to poses, rest pose, and then the mesh will go back to the pose that you want. The best way to check if this worked is go to the mesh itself, right? This thing. You go to edit mode, and as you can see, it stays here. This is what we want. It's helpful if you're trying to change how, like, the hair or something collides with another thing, but this is basically it. Can't really do it again. the only way to fix this is to undo, because now this is like the permanently set rest position. So make sure that you got everything done properly. But pretty easy. Or not, it's not easy, but it's simple once you realize how it works. Ignore the abomination right now, but very important caveat for what I'm about to discuss. If you are doing this for modding, you need to make sure that you have one UV map selected, and it is the same UV map that is assigned to the bones, right? Like, because I'm using the cornrows to set up my bones, that means that everything that is used to texture must also be assigned to the cornrows hairstyle, right? Like, I can't use this. It's not gonna look good. I have to make sure that, sorry, give me a second. I have to make sure that the image that is selected for the Octoling hair is still, let me find it, is still this, right? Like, I need to make sure that, so if I go into texturing, I go into, let me find it, I go to shading, I need to make sure that this is the same. It's gonna look weird. You can fix it eventually. It's gonna take a little bit of adjusting and stuff, but it is fixable. But they all have to use the same UV map for it to properly work if you're going to put it into, like, Splatoon. Just keep that in mind. Everything has to use the same UV map, and it has to be the same as the set of bones that you used. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Okay, this part is very complicated. It's a little bit convoluted, and it's very specific. If you don't do this properly, it could cause some problems, so just keep this in mind and listen to everything that I say properly. Okay, so we're just gonna import some random some random hair. Let's see, we're just gonna go to Octoling, your hair, we're just gonna say this one, right? We want this. Don't know what it is. Just gonna set that to... Okay, so we have the punk hairstyle. Just gonna label that like that. There you go. And as you can see, what we have is two meshes. We have the, bottom thing, and then we have this. Now, I'm just gonna delete that, and what we're also gonna do is delete the armature that resets this, because the armature was affected, but now the mesh itself wasn't affected. So we're gonna have to do 3 S selection to cursor, but then also what we're gonna want to do is this, select this, command that, and then do Control P, set it to parent. Now they're all in the same object, right? They are affected by the, sort of the same bones. It's a little bit different. Go to that later. But essentially, if I move this, this is going to move with it. But something important to keep in mind, if an object does not use the same mesh, and does not use, if the object does not use the same UV map, it will cause problems. So, I'll just show you right here, right? I'm going to select this. I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to select this, right? If I do Control J, right? This, if I go to the UV editing, right? And then I select, hold up. Oopsie. The hair color 1 map. I open the, Inkling hair file, go to 15, and I'll select the albedo, right? If I just hold A, you can see that what we have is this. We only have the cornrows hairstyle selected, right? And then if we go, I believe it would be, I'm not sure, it's one of these, I'm going to assume that it's map 1, right? We type A, you can see that it is applied to that, but it is not, if we go to red appearance, it is not looking how it should, right? And then we're going to say, I want to move these, right? It's like, you might think, okay, maybe if I just move them or something. Didn't really. No. And just to make sure you all understand what's going on, if I go here, right, press all of them, I'm going to select, just this, it moves. You can see that I'm moving the vertices, you can see how the mesh affects this, right? But you can't do it for meshes that have different... You can't do it for meshes that use different, like armatures or UV maps or something. It's convoluted and really annoying. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to import a couple more just to show you how it would work, right? Okay, the file, we're going to import day, right. So we have punk 2, I'm just going to label you, punk 3, there you go. Delete all these, so we don't need the lighting, but, then we're just going to set this up to 1 for now. Set you up to 1 as well. And, punk 3. So we're set up to 3. So that's what we normally do. Shift S, select into cursor. Great. We're going to delete, this. And then we're going to go here, do the same. So I'm pressing the wrong button. Delete. And then I'm just going to select you and then select the cursor. And make sure that it's the right size. And so now what we have is 3 of these. Now we're just going to like rotate. Wait, shit. We're going to delete the armatures. And again, that's just going to sort of reset them. Selection to cursor. Size it properly. It's pretty repetitive, but I'll show you what what I am talking about in a second. But anyways, so we're going to say that I want, like, the tentacles to be, like, this or something, right? I think that something messed up. But, you know, whatever. We're not going to talk about what that looks like anyway. So we're going to go into shading. Select these guys, their things is messed up for whatever reason. But we're just going to copy it and then paste it here. But then change, like, the albedo. I wanted to delete this. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Again, if you watch the tutorials, hopefully what I'm doing makes sense. If you haven't, sorry in advance. But anyways, so then you're going to change to the proper, like, we're going to go to the hair, to, what in the world? Okay. That is not supposed to happen. Give me a second. Oh, right, because all of the textures, if they're split up for whatever reason into male and female, I believe all of the textures should be put in female. So just keep that in mind. And then we're going to select this to color. Great, good. Got it set up. We're just going to select all of these to wait, what are you? I'm color 07, so then we're going to set these guys up to I'm color 07 as well, right? And then, so we're going to go back to layout. We fixed the texturing problem, right? And we're all going to parent everything to this armature. Just going to really quickly, like, control and control P. I always forget that. Okay, right? We have all of these together. And now what we want to do is maybe we want them all to be a solid thing, right? So what you're going to do is control, select these 3, control, and then you're going to do Control J, and that turns them all into one object that I can move around, right? However, just to show it again so that you understand what's going on, if I then do Control, select that one, Control J, I'm not sure why this happens, but you cannot do this with objects that do not share the same UV map. So just keep that in mind. It'll cause problems later. So just don't do it. Take it from me. I have a lot of experience in it. Right? But so now we have this, but maybe we're going to say, like, I want to change the UV, right? So to change that, first off, we need to select the hair, right? We're in edit mode for here, so what we can do is then we can select these 3 things. And it's not appearing because this is the wrong UV map image. What we want to do is we're going to go to Files, then the hair, female, and there you go, right? We don't have any of them selected, but if we press A, there you go, right? You can see all of them, and if I select these, you can see that these are the back tentacles. Give me a second, I'm gonna remove that. It changes here. But you can use this to sort of like change the appearance of certain things, where maybe you moved the mesh, or you needed to change the mesh used. You can go to the UV map, and this sort of moves it. And this is the part where the having this turned off is really, really, really important. So I'm just going to show you right now. I'm going to turn it off, right? I'm going to turn that on, select everything, and then I'm going to move it. This happens. The UV maps are really, 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 really bad at adjusting to change. So you want to make sure this is turned off. We don't want that on. That's about it that I can go over for the UV maps, but like this connects to the combining multiple meshes, where you cannot change the UV map, because if I go here, turn this back on, this control, oopsie, this control that, and then I control J, the hair, right? Like, you might be thinking, okay, well, can't I just edit the UV map? I wish, but here's what happens. Then if we go up here, we can see, we have this. Okay, well, does that mean that it's applying to, like, the, does that mean that it's, like, applying to the Octoling hair map? No, it is not, because as you can see, as I can move it around, it's not changing. So the only way that you can get the proper outcome is by only merging meshes that use the same UV map, they use the same color map, etc. Just, if you don't do that, it's just hell. I don't know how to fix it, and as much as I would love to say I have an idea of how to fix it, I don't. So just remember that if you're going to merge things together, make sure that they are make sure that they are classified as essentially the same item, otherwise you're going to get a really weird shit brown, and we don't want that. I made the mistake in the last recording, so we're just going to pull up a random hair really quickly, just so that I can actually show you what I mean. Do the same thing with the parenting, so just give me a moment to fix everything. Hair with an eye. Okay. Oh, great, it stays in my selection cursor. Great, wonderful. Going to delete this. Selection to cursor. And then, now control P, object. Now we're going to make sure that we properly size the mesh. There you go. Right. And the thing that you need to make sure is go back to object modifier, change the object it's stuck to the armature that you want it to listen to. So this, right? Now, if I grab this, I go into pose mode. I move that, it's only going to change that. I'll explain that in a second, but I think... Okay. Again, the bones only move this, but it doesn't move this, right? They should have the same armature, yep. But then if I go here, and I look at these guys, they don't have the same vertex groups, right? They have the same head root, but that's it, right? That's all that they have in common, is that they have the same head root. But then, what I can do instead is rename the roots. So what we're going to do, edit mode, and I'm just going to select, I'm going to see, also, just to clarify, so you might be wondering, okay, great, so the vertex groups control how a mesh moves, right? So why is it that the head root controls everything if only this stuff is affected by the head root? Simple. With how the meshes are set up, sorry, not how meshes, with how the bones are set up, it's like a sort of hierarchy where you have, it's like folders, right? You have the really big head root folder, everything is connected to that. You open up the folder, and then what you have is the not1, scalar A, scalar B, and scalar C, right? Not1, you know, all this. Scalar A and scalar B are just their files, and then scalar C connects to scalar D, etc., etc. So, even if the head root only selects certain things, because of how it works, anything that is connected to the bones that are underneath the head root bone are still going to move with the head root. But we're just going to change, like, we're going to deselect this, go to the front, select this, okay? I'm going to find, okay, the nape. We're going to select the nape, right? And we're going to change that to not _1. Enter, say that, so it's labeled not. If you go here, you can see that it also, got object mode, but then you select here, you can see that it itself also has the not bone. Now if we go here, and we go to pose mode, if I can find the right bone, give me a second. There we go. Now if I move this, you can see that these are also moving, right? It's probably a bit confusing. I'll go over how to actually do that, but just keep in mind, you need to make sure that the meshes have the same, like they're set to the same object, right? This cannot be read. It's not going to give you a warning, which is kind of annoying, but just make sure that any meshes that you change to a new armature, make sure that this is also changed. I think that with me setting up the parents, I did it wrong, but just make sure that this is the armature. But then to actually go over what to do. First off, you need to be in edit mode. And then you go to here. This is called Object Data Properties. And then you have all these little bones that connect to the armature bones, right? Like if I change up to object mode here, you can see that all of these names align with the armatures here, right? But, so it's like if I select the head root, again, it's just like the whole folder thing. But if I select not one, that means that it selects this. So this means that in animations, when not one moves, all of these are going to be affected. If I deselect that, and then I go to scalar E, these are only affected by scalar E. Like, if scalar E moves, only those guys are going to move. Tail 1C, you can see that's the center. Tail 2C, that's the center as well. But tail 1L, it has nothing. That is because I decided to reflect symmetrical, like, I decided to reflect this side over to this side. So the vertices that were typically connected to this, like to the tail 1L bone, tail 1 left, to the left bone, don't exist anymore. But maybe it's like I still want to, like, change that. How do I do that? It's a pretty simple pattern, so we're just going to say we're going to look at this. We can see that these bones are usually the ones that are affected, so maybe we want the top ones to be. So what we're going to do, we're going to select tool, we're going to turn on this, and what we're going to do is, first, we're just going to grab a couple bones, and then do select linked, right? But then it's like, okay, great, but we don't want the bottom one selected, so we're just going to quickly grab minus, do that with these guys, and we're going to say, okay, great, that is what I want. I want these guys to be affected by the tail 1L. What you're going to have to do is do assign, and then that's it. So what that means is then if I go out of edit mode, I go into pose mode, and then I select like the tail 1L. As you can see now, these move. Right. These guys are still connected to the tail 1R bone, so if I go over here, you can see that, you know, these guys are going to change. Just easy way to fix that, just go here, edit mode, then tail 2L again, select. We're just going to, like, grab those guys, subtract mode, make sure that you fix that too. Then I'm going to go to, like, these guys, right? We're just going to grab them, and then assign. But then quickly, just, you go to tail 1R, you select it, and then maybe you, like, remove these, and then you're going to say remove, right? And then when you select it again, it should just be these guys, and then just do the same for this one. You're going to select it, and then subtract, remove, and then should fix it. Yeah, there you go. So then that means that now, go here, pose mode, to L1L, it is perfectly functional on its own. It's a little bit wonky, but that is fine. You know. Pretty much how it works. But that's basically the easiest way to sort of fix the bones properly. The tail one C, it's pretty chill. Looks a little bit weird, but... And again, if you imported a hair that doesn't normally, you're going to need to rename the bones that you want it to assign to. So, we have, you know, Hydra, the knot, the scalars, etc. I would need to rename these bones so that they actually align up with bones that are in this armature. So just keep that in mind when you're setting it up, that this won't move until it's has the same thing, and that the vertices, like the vertex groups, are the same. Past this, if you're only doing this for Blender, you're done. Have fun. Go crazy. Mess around with it. Put it on your models, whatever you want. However, if this is for modding, there are a couple more things that you need to do. So just keep this in mind. So first off is just setting up everything with, like, the bones and stuff. I just went over vertex groups, so we're just gonna, like, copy these guys onto this. We're just gonna disregard actually how they work. We're gonna say, okay, great. This is can't spell, not one, right? Then it's, I believe, right? But if you're wondering about the name, it's because we already have a not one. So what we're gonna do is, where is it? I named one of them here, not one. I can't remember which one. Right here, you, yeah. So we're just gonna, like, delete that one instead then. Now, I go here. After not one, it is scalar E. Scalar E. Go here. That's tail 1, C, etc. I just repeat this really quickly. And it's not going to look pretty because I haven't actually edited anything, but just, you know, keep this in mind that you're going to need to do this for everything if you want it to actually work properly when you port it in. Just do this repetitively because we love but painful, yes, but it helps to make sure that you actually do this properly. And then it's scalar A, B, C, D. Scalar A, scalar B, scalar C. Make sure you spell it correctly. Scalar C. And then scalar D, right? So this means that it's gonna look really wonky for me, but if you set it up properly with what I just went over, should work fine. And then the next thing to do, so just make sure that you set up the vertex bones, like the vertex groups properly, how you want them. And the next thing you need to do is change the model, like change the model's UV maps. If they're under the same armature, it should be fine, but obviously you can't merge meshes that have different connected UV maps. Doesn't work. You have to go here, put the map. Looks disgusting, but, you know, ta-da. And also, I guess another thing you can do is just, like, if you go here, you can just change the thing that it's selected to 6. That works just as well. You'll need to go to UV editing. You should press A to select all of it, and you can see how it's spread out. And another thing for UV editing, I have the these little things selected. How am I? Okay. It's gonna go back to 1. But if I go to here, right, select this, select A, you can see that it then shows its own color maps, right here. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. It's fine if they aren't all in the same mesh, right? As long as they all have the same bones connected, that should be okay, should work, should be great. But just make sure that everything is the same UV map and that these guys are actually changed so that you like how they look, right? So it's like, excuse me, sorry. Select this, move that here, and I don't have, and there you go. And, you know, it just helps to make sure that it actually looks okay. And again, just to make sure that the UV map actually works, if you grab this and you move it around, you can sort of see, like, that it is actually moving and is working properly. Give me a second. I think I mentioned this during the rest pose modification, but just to repeat it again, you cannot change the actual bone position. These guys are hard-coded into Splatoon. You can't change it. It won't work. Pretty sure it'll crash the Switch, so just don't try it unless, you know, you find a solution or something, right? But past this, you should be okay for exporting it, except for a couple of things. With the Splatoon 3, like how I set it up in Blender, I set it up so that I set the scale to 3, and then I set it up to here. You can't do that when you're exporting it. You have to do is, so you have to press Shift S, and then cursor to world origin, right? Goes down here. Select the origin, sorry, select the object, Shift S again, selection to cursor. Everything is sort of set up on, like, the world origin for the things, so, sorry, you have to make sure that it's back at the world origin if you're going to export it, and then you have to change the scale back to 1, because otherwise that would be massive. But then it should be okay. This should be good. Okay, I just remembered. Another thing to do before you export it is, if you go up to here, you need to make sure that you see the face orientation. Each face has two sides, the red and the blue side. The blue means that it would be visible, like, in-game, and the red means that it's going to be, like, sort of invisible-ish when it's, like, ported into the game. All you need to do is, it really hurts my eyes, so I'm not going to, like, show it properly, but it's like, if I select these guys, if I go into edit mode, and then I select these guys, oh my lord, if I select this hair, and then I go into edit mode, select it properly, I'm gonna move the camera, but then what you should press Alt-N to show the normals, and then press flip. It really hurts my eyes, so I'm not gonna do that, but I believe if you go to edit, no, mesh, the normals, right here. So you can see that if you don't know the hotkey for yours, you go to mesh, you go to normals, and then you go to flip. Flip that again, and it should be okay to look at. Yes. But basically, you want everything on the outside to be blue. That means that you did it properly. And then past this, you should be chill. Just remember to go here, turn off face orientation. You're good. Doesn't hurt my eyes anymore. And then you're going to want to make sure that you delete, like, the character and everything. So, is it delete? Don't delete the camera. Actually, you probably can, but, make sure that the only things in here are what you want to export. I don't want that anymore, for whatever reason. And then there we go. This is what I want to export. All you then do is you go to File, Export. I think Colorado Day is the basic one. You just give it some random name. And then, there you go. I can let my abomination loose into the world. But that should be about it. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as best as I can. But I'm not a professional at either making videos, which I hope was obvious, or, like, using Blender. So just keep it in mind as you are going that I'm probably not the best person to ask, but also I haven't found any videos that are specifically going over how to do this. So I just wanted to, offer my 2 cents as someone who has had a crash course in this before. So just have fun.